Imagine watching incredibly smart, globally recognized companies spend hundreds of millions of dollars on this massive system upgrade, only to realize they are, well, essentially sabotaging their own future by accident.
Yeah, it is genuinely fascinating to observe. I mean, we are talking about some of the most sophisticated organizations on the planet just basically stumbling at the finish line.
Right, and stumbling on a macroeconomic scale. So welcome to today's Deep Dive. I'm your host, and today we're pulling from a huge stack of industry research, IT white papers, and financial implementation guides.
And I'm thrilled to be here to help break this all down. We're looking specifically at the massive market shift to SAP S/4HANA.
Exactly. And the mission of this deep dive is to rescue you, the listener, from what the source material repeatedly calls the biggest missed opportunity in the corporate world right now.
Because the core issue is that the way most executive boards view this migration is just dangerously narrow. Like, if you poll 100 executives about their S/4HANA migration, I'd bet 99 will categorize it simply as an IT project.
Just a technical thing.
Right. They treat it, like installing the latest iOS update on their phone, but scaled up for a multi-billion-dollar enterprise. They see it as a performance boost, or maybe just a necessary evil to keep their software supported.
But the research we're looking at drops an absolute bombshell right out of the gate. It argues that viewing this as just a technical upgrade is completely missing the point.
Entirely.
This migration is actually a once-in-a-decade opportunity to entirely redesign how an organization operates, literally from the ground up.
And within that massive opportunity, there is one specific, highly critical area that is consistently ignored until it's just too late.
Right, the linchpin.
Exactly, the linchpin to this entire transformation. If you get it wrong, the whole system falters.
Yeah.
And that area is tax and compliance architecture.
Which definitely catches people off guard. I mean, tax is rarely seen as the sexy driver of technological innovation, right?
Definitely not. But the text makes it crystal clear. If you don't build your new system around modern compliance realities, you are functionally dead in the water.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because calling tax the secret boss of a global enterprise software migration is a massive claim.
It is a bold statement, yeah.
We really need to move from the shiny marketing promise of S/4HANA to the grim reality of how companies are actively messing this up on the ground.
And they really are messing it up.
The source material highlights this glaring core conflict, where organizations are investing absolute fortunes to modernize, but simultaneously, and this is the crazy part, they are taking fragmented legacy tax logic, outdated country-specific customizations, and manual reconciliation processes, and just writing them directly into the core of this brand new system.
It's completely counterproductive.
To put it in perspective for you, it's like buying a multi-million-dollar Formula One car, right? But then dropping a rusty lawnmower engine into it just because it's the engine you already know how to use.
That is a perfect analogy.
The system fundamentally wants to move at the speed of light. But you've installed this bottleneck that forces it to process one screeching piece of data at a time. So I have to ask, why are companies doing this intentionally? Is it just laziness, or do they genuinely not understand what S4 actually does?
Well, what's fascinating here is that it's a profound misunderstanding of the technology itself, but it's compounded by decades of institutional muscle memory.
Muscle memory, right.
Yeah, to understand the mechanism of why this fails and why the text explicitly notes that these bad habits will actually fail much faster in S4, we have to look under the hood at how computing has actually changed.
Okay, let's look under the hood.
So before S/4HANA, companies ran on SAP's legacy system, which was known as ECC. And ECC was built for an era of batch processing.
Meaning the system collected data all day and then processed it overnight when nobody was using the server.
Correct. But S/4HANA is fundamentally different. It utilizes something called in-memory processing.
Let's pause there, because that term, in-memory processing, gets thrown around in IT circles a lot. How does that actually change the game for a business?
So think of a legacy database, like a massive, dusty filing cabinet located down in a basement somewhere.
Okay.
Every time you need to calculate something, the system essentially has to walk down to the basement, open the drawer, find the physical file, read it, and walk back upstairs.
Which obviously takes time.
Right. It takes time. But in-memory processing eliminates the filing cabinet entirely. It takes all your company's data and puts it directly on the desktop in the computer's RAM.
Oh, wow. So it's right there.
Instantly accessible. The system is designed for real-time analytics and incredibly fast integrated financial operations. It processes massive amounts of data, the literal millisecond a transaction happens.
The system is built for absolute immediacy, but historically, tax hasn't been immediate at all.
Not even close.
Tax has always been treated as this downstream reporting layer.
Hmm.
The sales team sells, the procurement team buys, and then at the end of the month, the tax department comes in, gathers up all the messy data, cleans it up in giant spreadsheets, and figures out what the company actually owes.
And that is exactly where the friction happens. If you take that old manual downstream mentality, that whole we'll fix it at the end of the month approach, and you hard code it into a system built for instantaneous in-memory processing, the system just chokes.
It can't handle the delay.
Exactly. S4 is trying to finalize a transaction in milliseconds, but your old tax logic requires manual checks, external spreadsheets, batch updates. It's a massive clash.
So you aren't just slowing down the new system, you're actually weaponizing your own bad habits against it.
Yes, weaponizing is a great way to put it.
The text points out that in a real-time environment, old errors don't just sit quietly until a human finds them in month end. They surface instantly. Dependencies cascade. Your operational risks completely multiply because the machine is executing your flawed processes at lightning speed.
Which is why a modern ERP running an outdated operating model is such a dangerous outcome. You are fundamentally misaligning the capability of the technology with the design of your business.
And the pressure isn't just internal, right? We have to look at the external realities, forcing companies into a corner here. The world outside the corporate firewall is completely changing.
The source material is adamant about this shift. Tax authorities around the globe, like in Latin America, Europe, parts of Asia, they are no longer waiting for those end-of-year or end-of-month reports.
They want the data now.
Right now, they've moved to a model of continuous transaction controls. They are validating corporate transactions in real time.
Wow.
Compliance is now embedded directly into the daily operations of the business. Government systems are actually an active breathing part of a company's transaction architecture.
They're essentially looking over your shoulder the millisecond you hit buy or sell. Yeah. If an invoice doesn't meet their digital formatting requirements instantly, the shipment literally doesn't leave the loading dock.
Exactly that level of interference. Because of this, the text is explicit tax can no longer be handled inside ERP customization layers alone. The regulatory environment is just too complex and it mutates too rapidly.
Here's where it gets really interesting.
Yeah.
Because every single S4 program currently underway has to answer one fundamental architectural question. It's the massive fork in the road for these migrations.
A big decision.
Right. The question is, where should tax logic live? And the source material lays out two distinct paths.
Two paths that essentially represent the difference between clinging to the past and actually building for the future.
Let's look at option one, which is the ERP-centric model.
Yeah.
The text labels this legacy thinking.
Mm-hmm.
This is the path where a company decides to embed all their tax logic directly into the core code of SAP. They build highly customized, country-specific configurations for every new regulation that pops up in France or Brazil or Japan.
And the result of that model is sky-high complexity, zero scalability, and absolute nightmare upgrade cycles.
All right, let's talk about the mechanism of that nightmare, specifically a concept the text calls technical debt.
Yes, technical debt is a huge concept here. When you write custom tax code directly into SAP, you are fundamentally altering its baseline DNA.
Okay.
So let's say Brazil changes a tax rule. Your IT team writes custom code into the ERP to handle it. 6 months later, SAP releases a crucial global security update.
But you can't just install it.
Exactly. The new update conflicts with that custom Brazilian tax code, and if you force the update, your entire financial system could crash.
So you've paralyzed your own IT infrastructure. You have to bring down the whole system, test the custom code against the new patch, rewrite it, and just hope nothing else breaks.
Technical debt means you are borrowing convenience today, but paying catastrophic interest on it tomorrow when your system becomes too brittle to update.
Which brings us to option two, the decoupled architecture.
The much better option.
The text calls this being future-ready. In this model, you keep the ERP strictly as this system of record. You pull the tax logic out entirely, you externalize it, and centralize your compliance orchestration in a completely separate system.
Right.
The result is supposed to be flexibility, scalability, and global consistency. But I actually have to push back here.
Go ahead.
Historically, the entire selling point of an enterprise system, the whole reason you buy a massive ERP, is to have a single source of truth under one roof.
Sure.
Every time I see a company try to bolt third-party software onto their core financial system, it turns into a data synchronization disaster. The systems don't talk, there's latency, things break. Doesn't decoupling and pushing crucial tax logic outside the ERP just introduce more fragmentation and chaos?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, decoupling in this context does not mean bolting on fragmented plugins.
Okay, so it's different.
Right, it means centralized orchestration. The text clarifies that the most advanced organizations aren't asking, how do we configure SAP for tax? That question leads directly to the bolt-on disaster you just described.
Right.
Instead, they are asking, how do we design an architecture that works globally?
So the goal is deliberately keeping the ERP as clean and vanilla as possible.
Precisely. By decoupling, you lift the heavy, constantly mutating burden of global tax regulations completely off the shoulders of the ERP.
Letting the ERP just do its job.
Exactly. The ERP gets to do what it does best, act as a lightning-fast, ultra-reliable system of record. Meanwhile, a specialized externalized compliance platform handles the complex, localized rules in real time, and it communicates seamlessly via modern APIs.
There's a strict division of labor.
Yes, that is how you prevent the ERP from becoming that tangled, customized mess we talked about in option 1.
Okay, so if decoupled architecture is so clearly the winning strategy, we need to look at execution. Because knowing the right path and successfully walking it are two entirely different things.
Absolutely.
How do organizations actually pull this off? And what are the specific traps they fall into along the way?
Well, the source material provides a very practical blueprint of how leading global organizations are executing this shift. They are entirely abandoning the idea of country-specific compliance setups.
No more local silos.
Right. Instead of having, an IT team for European tax and a completely separate team for South American tax, they are moving to centralized, real-time compliance platforms.
And what stands out of the research is how data fundamentally behaves in this new setup. The data isn't just numbers on a screen anymore. It's generated in a machine-readable format from its absolute inception. Validation happens before the data is ever submitted to a government authority.
That is the critical shift. You are no longer submitting bad data to a tax authority and just waiting to get hit with a penalty 3 months later.
The system catches it first.
Instantly. The centralized system catches the formatting error or the missing tax code before the transaction even clears. And functionally, this means you can acquire a new company or expand into a new country without having to rewrite your core ERP. You just update the rules in the external compliance engine.
But this all hinges on what the text calls the data mandate. The research argues that data is actually the most underestimated aspect of these massive S4 programs.
Because an S4 transformation is fundamentally about data consistency. In a world of real-time, in-memory processing and continuous government audits, your data must be perfectly clean at the source.
Right.
You have to design a system that prevents errors from occurring in the first place, rather than employing armies of accountants to fix them after the fact.
Which means standardized data models across the entire globe. Like an invoice in Germany has to use the exact same foundational data language as an invoice in Japan.
Exactly. If your data foundation is weak or fragmented, your incredibly expensive decoupled architecture is going to fail just as spectacularly as your old legacy system.
Which perfectly sets up a narrative of how companies crash and burn during this process. The source material outlines 3 massive landmines, common pitfalls, where S4 programs go horribly wrong.
These are so common it's painful.
Let's imagine a hypothetical company, right?
Yeah.
A global manufacturer deciding to upgrade to S4HANA. They immediately step into pitfall number 1, which is treating compliance as a phase.
This is the classic, we need to get the financials working first, we'll figure out the tax plumbing later mentality.
Yeah, the text notes, this is like building a 90-story skyscraper, finishing the drywall, painting the rooms, and then realizing you totally forgot to install the pipes.
All right.
To get the plumbing in, you have to tear down the walls you just built. By not designing for tax from day one, this hypothetical company inevitably faces massive rework, delayed go-lives, and severely bloated budgets, just because they have to deconstruct their new system to force it to comply.
And then, in their panic to fix the plumbing, they stumble right into pitfall number 2, over-customizing SAP.
Because they're desperate.
Yes. Because they didn't design an external architecture early on, the IT team panics and starts writing custom tax code directly into the new S4 system just to meet impending go-live deadlines.
Which immediately injects that technical debt we discussed earlier. They are hardwiring their shiny new system to become obsolete the very next time a tax law changes.
And that leads directly to pitfall number 3, ignoring global design. Because they are rushing and customizing, the whole project fractures.
Oh, I see where this is going.
The German team builds a solution for Germany. The U.S. team builds a completely different solution for the U.S.
And the text warns that the result of this localized thinking is total fragmentation. Our hypothetical company doesn't end up with a unified global ERP. They end up with this chaotic mosaic of incompatible local projects.
With zero centralized control.
Right. And scaling becomes impossible.
It is a tragically common sequence of events. They spend hundreds of millions of dollars to essentially recreate the exact same problems they had a decade ago.
So we've dissected the immediate migration, the architectural choices, and the execution traps. But the source material takes a very deliberate step back to look at the long-term horizon here.
The future state.
Yeah. Why does getting this specific data structure and architecture right today matter so much for the technologies that are coming tomorrow?
Well, this is where the conversation shifts from mere operational efficiency to, existential business survival. The research introduces a concept that every single leader needs to understand: the Internet of Agents.
The Internet of Agents. I mean, that sounds like something straight out of a sci-fi novel, but the text treats it as an absolute impending reality.
It really does. What's fascinating here is that the foundation for this is already being laid right now. The source material explicitly states that S4 systems will not operate as isolated, standalone databases.
Will be connected.
More than connected. They are evolving into vast ecosystems populated by intelligent agents. Think of an agent as an autonomous piece of AI software. These agents will continuously monitor systems, independently validate transactions against global regulations in milliseconds, and actually automate complex financial decisions without any human intervention at all.
But there's a massive prerequisite for this futuristic AI ecosystem. You cannot just sprinkle artificial intelligence on top of a messy, legacy-configured ERP and expect it to magically solve your problems.
Not all.
AI requires universally standardized, perfectly clean data.
Because an artificial intelligence is only as intelligent as the data it is fed.
Right.
If you feed an AI agent a diet of fragmented, customized, country-specific legacy logic that's riddled with manual workarounds, the AI will hallucinate, it'll fail, or it'll simply shut down.
It can't process the mess.
Exactly. A decoupled, globally standardized architecture isn't just about making tax reporting easier today. It is the absolute, non-negotiable foundation required to run enterprise AI tomorrow.
So what does this all mean? Like, for the people actually steering the ship, we need to translate this deep architectural shift into actionable takeaways for corporate leadership. The text breaks this down specifically for the C-suite, starting with the chief financial officers.
For CFOs, the mandate is clear. Stop treating an S4 migration as just an IT project.
It's way bigger than that.
It is a fundamental financial transformation. CFOs must stop delegating the architectural vision entirely to the tech teams. They need to step in and demand real-time visibility.
Right.
They must ensure compliance is embedded into the foundation, not treated as a reactive afterthought. They have to constantly ask, can this design scale globally without adding complexity?
And on the other side of the aisle, the chief information officers, what's their takeaway?
CIOs have to hold the line on the technical discipline. They must ruthlessly protect the core of the ERP.
Keep it clean.
Keep it clean. They have to enforce the decoupling of systems, refusing requests to customize the core code for local issues, and they must govern the data mandate, ensuring that information is universally standardized across the entire global footprint.
It's a massive paradigm shift. It requires the business operations side and the technical side to be locked in absolute alignment.
Which brings us back to the core thesis of the entire deep dive.
Exactly. To summarize the essential lesson from all these sources for you, an S4 migration is about redefining your organizational DNA. If you ignore your tax and compliance architecture during this transition, you are not solving your legacy problem.
You're just speeding them up.
Yes, you're simply paying millions of dollars to experience those exact same problems at a much higher velocity. The ultimate question you have to ask your team, whether you are planning a migration, in the middle of one, or trying to fix a botched one, is this: are we genuinely redesigning how we operate, Or are we just rebuilding our past?
This raises an important question, and really the defining metric for the future of enterprise business. The organizations that get this right, the ones that decouple their architecture, standardize their data, and design globally, will drastically reduce complexity and unlock true real-time operational intelligence.
And the ones that don't.
Those who fail will just drag their technical debt directly into an era where speed is absolutely everything.
And that era of speed isn't a decade away, right? It is knocking on the door right now.
Yeah.
If you follow the trajectory of what we've discussed today, governments demanding real-time validation, the shift toward machine-readable data, and the rise of this Internet of Agents, a pretty chilling but logical conclusion emerges.
It's inevitable.
Tax authorities are not going to rely on human auditors manually checking corporate spreadsheets forever. We are sprinting toward a near-future reality where government entities deploy their own autonomous AI agents to continuously probe and audit corporate ledgers, the literal millisecond a transaction clears.
Real-time government AI audits.
Exactly. And if your organization is still running a brittle, patched-together legacy system held up by manual workarounds and custom code, you are effectively bringing a calculator to an AI arms race.
Which is a terrifying thought.
Are companies genuinely prepared to have their outdated code audited in real time by government artificial intelligence? Based on the architecture being built right now, it feels completely inevitable. Think about that as you evaluate the foundation your own organization is building. We'll see you next time.